Next on Currents News, as Governor Cuomo heads to Puerto Rico to help earthquake victims, we speak with the Archbishop of San Juan for the latest on the situation there. And new controversy swirling around that book where Benedict XVI writes about the priesthood and celibacy.
Harrowing stories from the Holocaust fill this Brooklyn Catholic classroom. Important stories during a difficult time. I'm Emily Druby. That's ahead.
Plus, Jeopardy host Alex Trebek on his Jesuit upbringing and how it's now helping him through his illness. Currents News starts right now. Good evening, I'm Lydia Serrani. Tonight, New Yorkers are rallying around the people of Puerto Rico as earthquakes keep on coming. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is heading there. Currents News' Tim Harfman has that part of the story and the latest news from the island's Archbishop of San Juan.
How are you guys? It's good to see you.
New York Governor Andrew Cuomo on his way to Puerto Rico this morning after a series of earthquakes rocked the island, including one today with a magnitude of 4.6. Cuomo's leading a delegation along with 150 members of the National Guard.
We'll make sure that Puerto Rico is not left on its own.
As the group departed from JFK Airport, some Puerto Ricans were arriving. Carlos Velasquez lived through the tremors with his family.
The whole building was shaking. We had to go down like 3 or 4 times. The bed shook. My daughter was crying.
It's emotional for Catholics in the Brooklyn Diocese, too. Alex Ayala, a parishioner at Our Lady of Mount Carmel in Astoria, Queens, is worried about his mom living near Ponce, the epicenter. Her parish celebrates Mass outdoors, afraid the church will collapse.
She couldn't sleep last night because think about the earthquake, and she's scared.
Despite fear, San Juan's Archbishop Roberto Nieves said this afternoon those on the island have faith.
There is a spirit of trust in the Lord, and I would even suggest that even non-believers have a sense of the Spirit.
Governor Cuomo promised to help the U.S. territory.
We're American citizens. We're the family of America. They're our brothers and sisters.
Governor Cuomo is scheduled to spend 2 days in Puerto Rico, and he vows to come back and tell New Yorkers how they can help the island. At JFK Airport, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
Brooklyn Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is calling on Catholics in the diocese to help the people of Puerto Rico. A special collection will be taken up at all masses on the weekend of January 18th and 19th. This continues the strong support Bishop DiMarzio has shown to Puerto Rico. He traveled to San Juan with Cardinal Timothy Dolan to bring financial support and love to the island in the wake of Hurricane Maria's devastation. A big development today in Iran after the deadly shoot-down of a passenger plane last week. The regime says it has arrested those responsible for firing a missile into the aircraft, killing all on board. The air disaster has now sparked 4 days of street protests in Tehran against the country's rulers after they admitted downing the jet. About 36 protesters have been taken into custody. A dead Saudi Arabian serviceman is being called a terrorist after he murdered 3 U.S. sailors in Florida last month. At the same time, there's a battle brewing between the Justice Department and Apple over unlocking the killer's phones. Andy Rose reports what Attorney General Bill Barr is saying about the case.
This was an act of terrorism. The evidence shows that the shooter was motivated by jihadist ideology.
Investigators are unraveling the motives of 21-year-old Mohammed al-Shamrani, a member of the Royal Saudi Air Force who shot and killed 3 U.S. sailors at a naval air station in Pensacola, Florida in December, before authorities killed him.
The shooter posted a message on September 11th of this year stating the countdown has begun. He also posted other anti-American, anti-Israeli, and jihadi messages on social media.
Now the Attorney General says they need Apple to help them unlock the shooter's iPhones.
It is very important for us to know with whom and about what the shooter was communicating before he died.
21 Saudi servicemen have now been expelled from the U.S. The Defense Department saying in a statement, quote, investigators discovered that 21 Saudi international military students engaged in activity that raised serious concerns, including social media containing some jihadi or anti-American content and some kind of contact with child pornography. I'm Andy Rose reporting.
There's another case of anti-Jewish hate here in New York, and police are hunting for a suspect after a car parked in Fresh Meadows, Queens, was broken into. The vandals scrawled swastikas onto the seats. Governor Andrew Cuomo is deploying the state police to help out in the hate crime investigation. He said these blatant anti-Semitic attacks are meant to instill fear and feed the cancer of hate that has become pervasive across this nation in recent years. Hate crimes are skyrocketing in New York City over the past year, and most of the violence is directed at Jewish people. Brooklyn's Bishop Loughlin Memorial High School is taking action to make a difference by teaching students about the Holocaust. Currents News' Emily Druby reports from Clinton Hill. A note to viewers, there are images of the Holocaust that may be disturbing.
They would point to the guest chamber, where is your God now? And inside myself I said, our God is here, but where is yours?
Deafening silence fills this Catholic classroom reaction to the stories of a Holocaust survivor.
And he ended up sacrificing his life.
While in most schools, the Holocaust is just part of the history curriculum, at Bishop Loughlin, it's a semester-long class.
We have to remember it so we can do better in the future.
Despite living next to Jewish neighborhoods in Brooklyn, Amir Brown doesn't know any Jewish people. This class is helping him understand them better.
It just teaches me just to be a better person and recognize what other people go through, because sometimes life can be tough, but it's about what you're willing to give, what you're willing to put forward, your best foot.
That's what teacher William Mason was hoping for when he created it.
We talk about the fact that the Holocaust officially is over, but anti-Semitism is still with us. We see it more and more recently.
The NYPD reporting a 26% increase in anti-Semitic hate crimes in 2019.
And we want the students to be warriors against this. We want them not to stand by and watch it happen. I mean, Elie Wiesel said one of the worst things you could be is a bystander. Never be a bystander.
In this class, students are learning lessons they never knew and now will never forget.
The fact that still to this day that there's still bodies buried underground in Germany, and that they dehumanized Jewish people.
This is the 5th year of the class. It's a senior elective offered in both the fall and the spring semester, and there's almost always a wait list. In Clinton Hill, Emily Druby, Currents News.
Over in Queens, the father of 2 Catholic school students is helping clean up a church vandalized with gang signs. This man donated his time and tools to Power Wash MS-13 that was spray painted on Sacred Heart of Jesus Church in Bayside, Queens. Church surveillance video captured a masked person scrolling the violent gang's name on the church's main entrance on Sunday morning. The pastor is now planning to install more security cameras. The latest now on new controversy swirling around that book where Benedict XVI writes about the priesthood and celibacy. He now wants his name yanked as co-author, but the publisher of the American edition is balking. The national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, Christopher White, joins us with an update on what's been happening all day. Now, yesterday, Christopher, it seemed that the book was all set to go to press, due out in French this week and in English next month. Can you walk us through what's happened in the last 24 hours?
Yeah, this is like a tennis match, just going back and forth, back and forth. So yesterday, the latest, as we went to bed last night, was that there was this speculation that there might be questions about what Benedict knew. Did he know that he was signing on to a full book? Was he just contributing ideas to a chapter? This morning, Rome time, George Ganswein, his longtime secretary, said that there were questions, that the Pope really didn't realize he was contributing to a full book. And he said, I believe that Cardinal Sarah, the author of this, has the best of intentions, but there's been some communication errors along the way, and we've asked the publisher to take the Pope's name off as a co-contributor. Now, Ignatius Press, the publisher of the book in the U.S., is saying, the terms with Cardinal Sarah were quite clear, and we consider this new material, and so this is going to be a co-authored book, whether you like it or not.
Wow. So Cardinal Sarah, in particular, has expressed outrage, people questioning his motives. Can you talk to us more about that?
Yeah, so the Cardinal took to Twitter, as everyone does, to express their outrage. And in a tweet, he said, "Attacks seem to imply a lie on my part. These defamations are of exceptional gravity." So really sort of taking issue with the fact that some people were saying that the Cardinal was trying to manipulate the Pope in this and try to sort of win an ideological battle or sort of steer him to his side. He wanted to push back against that.
It does almost sound that Benedict may have been taken advantage of. He is, what, 93
yeah.
years old. What do you think how that plays a part
Yeah, I
in
think
this?
a huge part of what we've seen in the past 48 hours is that the church is still trying to make sense of how you live with a pope and a retired pope, and what authority does a retired pope have, and who speaks for him. So these are things that will continue to no doubt work themselves out in the years ahead.
And Benedict was never the type that loved the spotlight either, so I'm sure he's uncomfortable with all of this and is seeing his name in headlines.
Yeah, he's probably best in a library. It's where he's most comfortable, and I think he probably wants to go back to that.
Christopher White, the national correspondent for the Tablet and Crux, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you, Lydia.
The logjam over President Trump's impeachment may be about to break. The Democrat-controlled House intends to vote tomorrow on sending the charges to the Senate.
Those articles of impeachment: 1, abuse of power; 2, obstruction of Congress, will be transmitted to the Senate at some point tomorrow.
The House impeached Trump 4 weeks ago, but held off on sending the articles over to the Senate. Now that a trial could be near, Republican Senator Mitt Romney is talking about new witnesses.
I'd like there to be witnesses and be able to hear from someone like John Bolton. At the same time, I'm comfortable with the Clinton model, which is we hear the opening arguments first, and then we'll have a vote on whether or not to have witnesses.
Senate Republican leaders are saying tonight that the Trump trial is unlikely to begin until next week. They're expecting a partisan fight over the rules of the proceeding and whether any witnesses are called. There's a lot more news headed your way. A war of words between Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren is threatening to overshadow tonight's presidential debate in Iowa. And a prestigious honor for the man who stopped a church shooting in Texas.
And I've seen the promised land.
And Martin Luther King Day is almost upon us. Why his message is so important to the values of all Catholics. That's coming up after the break. Do you have a story idea or want to share a tip with us? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. Tonight is the presidential debate in Iowa. 6 candidates who met donor and polling thresholds put in place by the Democratic National Committee will take the stage. But it's a feud between 2 of the candidates that is now overshadowing the final face-to-face before the all-important caucuses. Fireworks already sparking, and the 6 Democratic presidential candidates haven't even taken the stage yet. The controversy is between Senators Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren.
Disappointed to hear that Bernie is sending his volunteers out to trash me. Bernie knows me and has known me for a long time.
Warren says Sanders told her in 2018 that a woman couldn't win the White House. Sanders calls the claim ludicrous to believe.
I think that there are a certain number of people who would like to see a woman elected, and I understand that.
Former Vice President Joe Biden, as a frontrunner, takes center stage at the debate.
I think we represent the broadest coalition of people, not just any one segment of the party, but young, old, brown, black, people, women, men.
Former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg says it's time for a different kind of leader.
The purpose of the presidency is not for the glorification of the president, it's for the unification and the empowerment of the American people.
Meanwhile, businessman Tom Steyer.
I think that the thing that has put me on this stage, and it is the same for every single person who's running for president, is message.
And Senator Amy Klobuchar hope to boost their profiles during the debate.
Return to sanity. So that is my plan.
And stay with Currents News for election coverage you won't find anywhere else. Currents News' Michelle Powers will be reporting from Iowa tomorrow. She'll highlight the debating points that got the most attention on stage. And St. John's University political expert Brian Brown will join me in the studio right here, looking ahead to the Iowa caucuses that will kick off the nominating season, now less than 3 weeks away. A faith-filled man is being honored for his amazing act of bravery. Jack Wilson got the Medal of Courage from Texas Governor Greg Abbott for stopping a gunman in a deadly church shooting last month. The award is the state's highest honor given to civilians.
I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land.
Martin Luther King Day is celebrated on Monday, but tomorrow, January 15th, would have been the civil rights leader's actual 90th birthday. Joining me to reflect on that milestone and why Dr. King's message is so important to the values of all Catholics is Father Alonzo Cox, pastor of St. Martin de Porres Parish and coordinator of the Brooklyn Vicariate for Black Catholic Concerns. Thank you so much for being here, Father.
Thank you.
Now, we just heard Dr. King say that he had seen the promised land. How much progress have we made as a society in getting there?
I mean, we have made some progress, but there's still a lot more work that we need to do. You know, we live in a world where Christians are still being persecuted for believing in Christ. We still live in a world where blacks are being looked upon as, second-class citizens because of the color of their skin. You know, we still live in a world where there's prejudice and racism. So we still have a lot more work to do in allowing that promised land to become a reality.
Why is Dr. King's message so important for all Catholics?
I think Dr. King preached about equality, peace, love, justice, in the same way that our Lord, preached about, equality, peace, love, and justice. And, Dr. King, really spoke words that really resonated within the hearts of every person, black or white, especially Christians who dedicated themselves to living out the message of Jesus. So I think it's important that we continue to reflect on the words of Dr. King as we strive to grow closer to Christ as disciples of him.
What are some of the issues specific to Black Catholics?
I think one of the things that Black Catholics are concerned about, or that's really important to them, is being able to practice the faith in their own particular culture. I'm very blessed to be the pastor of a very dominantly African-American, Caribbean, West Indian parish. And each Sunday, I am able to celebrate the liturgy with my people, and they're able to express themselves in music, in song, in dance. And, Black Catholics want to be able to do just that.
So you're incorporating the culture.
Absolutely, absolutely. Incorporating the culture into the celebration of the liturgy. And that's really just a wonderful and beautiful thing.
Why do you feel that's important to do that?
I think it's important because they're able to actually express who they are, not just as Catholics, but as a Black Catholic. We're blessed in my own parish to have music that gets people on their feet. And that's a wonderful and beautiful thing. Whenever we have visitors that come to our parish, especially from the Midwest or from the East Coast or from the West Coast, they say to me, Father, I didn't go to Mass like this back at home. I said, well, welcome to Brooklyn. Welcome to our parish that is just on fire with the Holy Spirit, but able to really celebrate who we are as Black Catholics.
Martin Luther King Day is seen as the sort of unofficial start of Black History Month. What events are being planned around the diocese?
Oh, so next Monday, January the 20th, we have our diocesan celebration for Dr. King. We'll have a special prayer service, midday prayer, at Our Lady of Victory. We've invited a guest preacher, as we do every year. This year's guest preacher will be Father Robert Boxey, who is a priest of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C., an African-American priest of the Archdiocese of Washington, D.C. And he's very much looking forward to coming and being with us. And then we have our Diocesan Black History Month celebration that will take place on February 16th at the Immaculate Conception Center. And again, we're able to just come together and to give thanks and praise to God for the gift of Jesus and for the gift of our culture as Black Catholics.
Sounds wonderful. I would love to attend Mass there someday.
You gotta
Sounds
come
like a
on
lot
over.
of fun.
You
I
gotta
love
come
to
on
sing.
over.
Father Alonzo Cox, pastor of St. Martin de Porres Parish and coordinator of the Brooklyn Vicariate for Black Catholic Concerns, thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you.
The Trump administration has asked the Supreme Court to lift a lower court order that is blocking the government from making it more difficult for immigrants who rely on public assistance to obtain legal status. A New York judge stopped the rule last October. The rule affects people who receive most forms of Medicaid, food stamps, and housing vouchers. Immigration advocates say the rule discriminates against those from poorer countries and could affect millions. Much more ahead on Currents News, including a major milestone in gender equality. Women are edging out men in the workplace. Plus, the power of prayer, how Jeopardy host Alex Trebek says it's helping him get through his illness. Before the break, a programming note about a special Currents News 5-part series on human trafficking.
Most girls out here are under 18.
Society's most vulnerable, exploited and abused for profit. We'll have in-depth reporting from the streets of New York, the epicenter in a humanitarian crisis unfolding in every corner of the country. Don't miss this very special series, Human Trafficking Exposed, this Thursday on Currents News. A big breakthrough for women in the workforce. New data is now showing that they outnumber men. Meredith Wood has a closer look at the industry seeing the most growth and why it's happening.
Women dominating the workforce. Women now hold more jobs than men. It's a minuscule yet massively interesting piece of data buried in the Labor Department's December jobs report. It found women now occupy more than 50% of non-farming positions. Experts say this trend is expected to grow as the number of working women increases while the number of men in the workforce declines. So what's behind the shift? Experts point to the economy moving away from traditional male-dominated jobs in sectors like manufacturing towards a service-based business model. The jobs report found more female-dominated industries like education and health services added 36,000 jobs. Meanwhile, jobs in the mining and manufacturing sectors lost about 21,000 jobs. Perhaps another reason for the shift. A report by Catalyst finds women are earning more degrees than men. Census figures show this is advantageous to women because having a college degree is linked to higher salaries. I'm Meredith Wood.
Fighting back tears, Jeopardy host Alex Trebek told a Fordham University audience that prayer has made it possible for him to cope with cancer. The TV icon spoke after the university presented him with its Founders Award because of his service to others. Trebek credited his Jesuit upbringing for his devotion. The 79-year-old is fighting stage 4 pancreatic cancer. He's been on Jeopardy for more than 30 years and is still recording shows. His son Matthew is a Fordham graduate. Finally, tonight, a 6-year-old boy upset by the devastating fires in Australia is working hard to help the country's wildlife after an estimated 1 billion animals perished. Owen Colley came up with the idea of creating clay koalas to be given away in exchange for donations. All of the money goes to wildlife rescuers in Australia. Owen is excited about the project.
We can help the fires and help the animals. Because helping animals is better than watching TV.
Owen has already raised over $12,000. And that's Currents News. I'm Lydia Serrani. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. Hope to see you again next time. Good night.